The Jeff Chandler mystery, finally solved, and it's not what fans hoped. He was tall, prematurely silver-haired, and devastatingly handsome, with a baritone voice that could disarm a room. But beneath the Hollywood glamour and the brooding on-screen charisma, Jeff Chandler lived a life that would end not just in tragedy, but in lingering mystery. Born Ira Grossel on December 15, 1918 in Brooklyn, New York, Chandler grew up in a modest Jewish household, surrounded by the hardships of the Great Depression. His world was not one of red carpets and studio lots, but of crowded apartments, street grit, and dreams just out of reach. And yet, from an early age, he burned with an undeniable passion for the arts. He studied acting at the Fegan School of Dramatic Art in New York City, while working tirelessly in stock theater and radio. His voice, smooth, resonant, unforgettable, would become his ticket out. But before Hollywood came calling, World War II interrupted his rise. Chandler served with honor in the U.S. Army, stationed in the remote and unforgiving Aleutian Islands. The discipline he gained there became a defining feature of his career. He was methodical, focused, and unwavering. After the war, Chandler returned to civilian life with one clear goal: to make it. He dove into radio, where his commanding voice quickly made him a recognizable presence. Before long, he found himself stepping in front of the camera, first in minor roles, then in more substantial ones. His breakout came in 1948 when he played a ruthless gangster in Johnny O'Clock. But it was Broken Arrow, 1950, that changed everything. Cast as Cochise, the dignified Apache leader, Chandler gave a performance that defied every stereotype. In an era when Native American characters were often reduced to caricatures, he portrayed Cochise with empathy, intelligence, and strength. The role earned him an Academy Award nomination and made him a star overnight. But even as the lights of Hollywood embraced him, something darker lingered in the background. Through the early 1950s, Jeff Chandler was everywhere. He starred in action-packed adventures like Smuggler's Island, 1951, wartime epics such as Merrill's Marauders, 1958, and gritty westerns like The Jayhawkers, 1959. He shared the screen with legendary leading ladies, Jane Russell, Maureen O'Hara, Rhonda Fleming, and built a reputation as a man who could be both stoic and soulfully vulnerable. Behind the scenes, however, Chandler was more than just a leading man. He was a musician, recording ballads and standards in a voice that revealed a softer, more romantic side of the man, so often cast as the brooding outsider. Songs like I Should Care and All I Do Is Dream of You gave listeners a glimpse of Jeff as they'd never seen him, not behind a gun or in the wilderness, but behind a microphone, heart wide open. And he wasn't content with just acting. He launched his own production company, a rare move at the time, showing a sharp business mind and a desire for creative control. Chandler wanted to tell stories, not just star in them. He sought substance over stardom, but Hollywood wasn't always willing to follow where he led. In 1946, Chandler married actress Marjorie Hoschel. She had her own budding career, and at first, the couple seemed like the picture of silver screen elegance. They welcomed two daughters, Jaime, born in 1947, and Dana, in 1949. Dana would later adopt Grossel into her surname, a tribute to her father's original identity. For a time, life looked golden. The Chandlers made their home in Los Angeles, living the dual life of movie stars and young parents. Jeff was balancing blockbuster roles with bedtime stories, earning standing ovations on set and fatherly hugs at home. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. The demands of fame, the brutal schedule, the weight of expectation, it all took a toll. And soon, the shimmering promise of his life would unravel in ways no one expected. Because the mystery surrounding Jeff Chandler's tragic death wasn't just about how he died. It was about why and what had been hidden all along. Jeff Chandler's downfall, the marriage, the affair, and the secrets he couldn't outrun. From the outside, Jeff Chandler and Marjorie Hoschel looked like one of Hollywood's golden couples, strikingly attractive, talented, and poised for a long, glamorous life together. But behind closed doors, the truth was far more complex and heartbreakingly human. By 1951, just 5 years after tying the knot, the cracks in their marriage had become impossible to ignore. The couple separated, hoping that space might mend what was quietly breaking apart. They reunited soon after, but the same emotional distance, the same silence at the dinner table, and the same sense of disconnection lingered. In 1954, Marjorie filed for divorce. One of her most haunting observations wasn't about infidelity or betrayal. It was exhaustion. Chandler was so chronically fatigued, she said, that he would fall asleep in the middle of conversations, at parties, even during public appearances. It wasn't laziness, it was burnout. He was working grueling hours under the relentless weight of studio contracts, and even when he was home, he was miles away in his mind. His presence, Marjorie noted, was more of an absence, a hollow version of the man she had once known. Still, there was hope. In March 1955, they gave it another try, attempting reconciliation. Chandler, meanwhile, continued to dominate the silver screen. Universal Studios counted him among its most profitable stars. He was in demand, paid well, and commanding audiences with every performance, but fame rarely offers room for intimacy. In 1957, while filming Raw Wind in Eden in Italy, Chandler's personal life took a public turn. He began a high-profile affair with swimming star and actress Esther Williams. Glamorous, confident, and already a household name, Williams was a magnetic force, and the media devoured the story. For Marjorie, the affair was the final straw. She filed for divorce again later that year, bringing to an end a marriage that had been bruised by distance, ambition, and the unforgiving nature of show business. The 1958 divorce proceedings pulled back the curtain on Chandler's off-screen life. He testified that he was earning a substantial income under contract with Universal, $60,000 per film in 1957 and $75,000 per film in 1958. He made $250,000 total in 1957, factoring in music performances and public appearances. In today's terms, he was a millionaire many times over. But money in Hollywood was never just money. Chandler explained that 25% of his earnings vanished immediately, going to his personal manager, business manager, and agent. Add to that the expenses of maintaining a public image, wardrobe, travel, business overhead, and supporting his family, and his fortune looked far less secure than it appeared in fan magazines. Despite the deductions, the court ordered him to pay $1,500 per month in temporary spousal support. And in the final settlement, reached in June 1959, Chandler agreed to $2,166 per month in alimony plus $500 in child support. He also paid a lump sum of $100,000, a staggering figure at the time, reflecting both the length of the marriage and his box office power. Marjorie later described her ex-husband as a man completely consumed by work. Even when he wasn't filming, she said, he was in his office, not resting, not with us, just working. The emotional neglect took its toll. Marjorie suffered from a stress-induced ulcer, a physical wound from the years of emotional erosion. And yet, the spotlight never stopped chasing Chandler. Even after the divorce, his romantic life remained headline-worthy. He was linked to several women, including actress and singer Gloria DeHaven, whose beauty and talent had captivated audiences for years. Their relationship, largely kept private, was sensationally exposed by Confidential magazine, the tabloid infamous for its brutal invasions of celebrity privacy. At a time when reputations could be destroyed overnight, the magazine spared no one. But behind the whispers and salacious headlines, the reality was more sobering. Chandler wasn't a playboy. He was a man chasing meaning in a world that refused to let him rest. His story, already marked by burnout, heartbreak, and relentless pressure, would take a far darker turn just a few years later, one that no film script could have predicted. The scandal, the autopsy, and the shocking end of Jeff Chandler. If Jeff Chandler thought he could keep his private life out of the public eye, he sorely underestimated the hunger of the mid-century tabloid machine. When Confidential magazine joined forces with private investigator Fred Otash, all bets were off. Otash, notorious for trailing Hollywood's elite, revealed that he and his team had tailed Chandler and Gloria DeHaven, capturing photographic evidence of their affair. Not for justice, not for history, but for scandal. It was a gross violation of privacy, one that epitomized the brutal cost of fame in the golden age of Hollywood. But the biggest bombshell came nearly 4 decades later. In 1999, actress and former Olympic swimmer Esther Williams published her explosive memoir, The $1,000,000 Mermaid. In it, she claimed that her once intimate relationship with Chandler ended abruptly after he proposed marriage and then confessed to being a cross-dresser. The revelation was a lightning strike across Hollywood history. Fans were stunned. Media outlets reignited interest in the late actor's life. It was a narrative twist that no one had seen coming. According to Williams, the confession shattered her image of Chandler and ended their romance. But not everyone believed her. The backlash was swift and furious. Jane Russell, Chandler's longtime friend and one of the most respected women in old Hollywood, fiercely defended him. "I've never heard of such a thing," she said in disbelief. "Cross-dressing is the last thing I would expect of Jeff. He was a sweet guy, definitely all man." Others in the Hollywood circle echoed her sentiment. Some suggested Williams might have misinterpreted a private moment or perhaps exaggerated the story for impact. Chandler's hyper-masculine screen image, his commanding baritone, and his reputation as a romantic lead made the allegation deeply controversial and deeply personal. But whatever the truth was, Jeff Chandler was no longer alive to respond. Aside from Williams and DeHaven, Chandler had also been linked to Ann Sheridan, another silver screen legend. Their connection, though never officially confirmed, only added to the mystique surrounding his love life. A life filled with longing, secrecy, and relentless scrutiny. As headlines buzzed and whispers circulated, Chandler did what he had always done best. He worked. He poured himself into roles, portraying war heroes, outlaws, and reluctant romantics. But behind the scenes, his personal life was unraveling. A storm of divorce settlements, scandal magazines, secret affairs, and now posthumous controversy painted a vastly different portrait than the polished studio image. Yet, none of it compared to the tragic mystery of his untimely death. Jeff Chandler died in 1961 at just 42 years old, following what was supposed to be a routine operation for a slipped disc. He had entered Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, a top medical facility in Los Angeles, expecting a standard surgical procedure. What followed was a nightmare that would haunt Hollywood forever. The official cause of death? A blood infection, complications from surgery. But almost immediately, questions emerged. How could a man in good health, a Hollywood star in his prime, simply vanish after a standard operation? Friends, colleagues, even Chandler's ex-wife couldn't make sense of it. Rumors began to swirl. Rumors that would only intensify in the years to come. Some whispered about misdiagnosis. Others alleged that Chandler had a known allergy to certain anesthetics and antibiotics, but the hospital had ignored it. Then came the most chilling story of all. A nurse, speaking privately to Chandler's friend Sammy Davis Jr., claimed there had been panic in the operating room. Chandler, she said, began having violent seizures and anaphylactic symptoms, and staff had no protocol for how to handle it. Was it gross negligence? A medical cover-up? The Cedars of Lebanon Hospital had a reputation to protect, and in an era before widespread malpractice lawsuits and digital records, details could be buried, quietly and permanently. No formal charges were filed. No inquiry was made public, and Chandler's body was laid to rest before the full truth could ever surface. In the decades that followed, his fans mourned not only the man, but the mystery. How could such a bright light be extinguished so suddenly and so inexplicably? For years, his death was spoken of in hushed tones. A tragedy, yes, but also a riddle with too many missing pieces. What remains today is the myth and memory of Jeff Chandler, a man adored for his commanding performances, admired for his intensity, and remembered for the roles that redefined masculinity on screen. Yet behind that image stood a human being, flawed and private, fighting his own battles with love, fame, exhaustion, and a world that demanded too much. In the end, Jeff Chandler was not just a star. He was a symbol of old Hollywood's haunting contradictions. The glamour and the grief, the spotlight and the shadow. His life burned bright, and then, in a flash of pain and unanswered questions, it was gone. But the story? The story still lingers. The cover-up, the daughter's fight, and the painful truth behind Jeff Chandler's death. It would take decades, and the relentless determination of a grieving daughter to finally expose what had long been buried beneath layers of denial, legal stonewalling, and industry silence. Thanks to newly unsealed court documents and once confidential hospital archives, the truth has now emerged. Jeff Chandler was administered a penicillin-based antibiotic, a drug he had a documented allergy to. The records show that this fatal oversight, compounded by poor post-surgical monitoring, led directly to the cascade of medical complications that ultimately claimed his life. And yet, rather than acknowledge their deadly error, the hospital, Cedars of Lebanon, one of Los Angeles' most prestigious institutions, allegedly moved quickly to cover their tracks. Internal memos and communications revealed that hospital administrators feared a lawsuit, especially given Chandler's fame and the potential public fallout. The result was a veil of silence, cast over a preventable tragedy that had every hallmark of systemic negligence. But the scandal didn't end within the hospital walls. In the tightly controlled Hollywood of the early 1960s, Universal Pictures had a vested interest in preserving Chandler's wholesome, heroic image. He was not only one of their most recognizable stars, he was a symbol of American masculinity, resilience, and screen virtue. News that he had died because of a hospital error, and worse, that it might have been preventable, could shatter that carefully cultivated illusion. For the studio, the truth was not just inconvenient, it was dangerous. Insiders later suggested there had been a concerted effort, whether formal or tacit, by powerful figures in the entertainment industry to suppress damaging information. Tabloids were paid off, questions were dodged, obituaries were polished to portray his death as a tragic but random occurrence, a young star taken too soon by fate, not by failure. Yet not everyone was willing to let the matter rest. Marjorie Hosell highlighted Chandler's declining health and relentless work. Friends affirmed his exhaustion and chronic pain. His daughter, Jaime Tucker, fought for access to his medical records, uncovering failures in treatment. Her findings revealed that crucial allergy information was ignored, leading to tragic consequences. Chandler's story underscores the darker aspects of celebrity healthcare and personal struggles.